We're continuing our series on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast of talking to All-State conductors for the 2022 PMEA All-State Festival. That's all on today's PMEA's Take Note podcast presented by the Slippery Rock University Music Department. Hello, everybody, and welcome to PMEA's Take Note podcast. Today, we are again talking about the 2022 PMEA All-State Festival coming up here in April, and we're going to be talking to two more of the conductors of some all-state ensembles today. Today, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Paula Crider, the wind ensemble conductor, as well as Jason Seber, the all-state orchestra conductor. Enjoy. All right, we are here with Dr. Paula Crider, a professor emerita at the University of Texas. She was the director of the Longhorn Marching Band. So I have that in my head as I'm thinking, I hear the marching band in my head. And if you've ever been to Midwest, this is certainly a very familiar face that you see there. She's on the Midwest Clinic Board of Directors. And exciting for us, she is coming to Pennsylvania this April to be the conductor of our All-State Wind Ensemble. Paula, thank you so much for being here with us.
It's my pleasure. Glad to be here, Mark.
Well, so we want to dive in and talk a little about what you'll be doing when you come to Pennsylvania. So let's talk about the musical program that you'll be doing when you're here at the All-State Festival. Can you tell us about some of the highlights?
You bet. And I'm really excited about the program because I try to pick pieces that will be both musically challenging, but certainly rewarding to the students. The first piece we're going to open with is a piece that was commissioned by the United States Army Field Band. It is a great fanfare. It's Sacred Spaces, and I think the kids will really enjoy that. The reason I picked that, among others, is that it has a really challenging percussion part, and the percussionists in the all-state groups are always just absolutely outstanding, and this is a piece that will really challenge the percussionists. I think they're going to love it. Another piece we're doing is called Pacem, and it's a very beautiful lyric piece. And I think in these challenging times that Pacem is a musical expression that we can certainly share with the audience, and a much needed healing expression. I think we're doing a piece called Yiddish Dances, 4 movements of that. It features soloists, and the composer wrote it for his best friend's birthday. So it's really a fun piece. We're also doing a piece by a good friend of mine, Julie Giroux. It's called Italian Rhapsody. And in that, we're featuring the entire trumpet and trombone section. I've asked them to memorize a 16-bar spot so that we can feature them. And all of the pieces are very tuneful. But I'm extremely excited about the fact that we get to premiere a piece this year. And it's written by Carol Chambers, who is a Texan, and it's called Tarantella. And it is a beautifully crafted piece. I know the students will really enjoy playing it. And hopefully, if Carol can't be there, at least we can do a Zoom with her and have an opportunity for them to really interact with the composer. So I can't wait to stand in front of that group and share this music with them.
Yeah, and I've seen the score for the Carol Chambers piece, and what fun it is. It is really, that's going to be a fun one for the students for sure.
It's very clever. Yeah.
Yes, that's the perfect word for it. It is very clever. Okay, so what are you hoping students will get out of participating in the wind ensemble that you're conducting?
Well, first of all, I want to increase their musical knowledge. I like to take them to deeper and deeper levels so they understand the whys of the music, not just the notes. But I also want them to enjoy that very special feeling when the whole becomes so much greater than the sum of their parts. And it just creates those chill bump moments that, I don't know, I can remember some of my performances that are still with me. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. And that's what I want for the kids. I want this music to be something that they can not only play, but they can feel.
Well, I want to be in this ensemble. I'm getting excited for this. So we're living in strange times, and a lot of us have not been on a stage, been able to perform in a while. kind of, what are your feelings in this strange time as we're now coming back and we're performing, and you're going to be able to do this all-state festival for us? What's your feeling to return to live performances?
Well, I think it has struck all of us that we all knew what a privilege it was to play and to conduct. But until it was taken away from us, I don't think we really, really understood what a privilege that was. And the first time I stood in front of a group, I had the privilege of conducting the Syracuse University Wind Ensemble earlier this year. And it was the first time those young musicians had gotten together for a live performance. And when we finished, not only was there not a dry eye in the ensemble, I looked out in the audience and they felt the same way. So, my thoughts about standing in front of a really talented group again is such an exciting feeling. But it is also a privilege that I will never take for granted, and certainly not after all of the COVID restrictions that have been imposed upon us.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think that I've heard that so much when people go back on stage for that first time, and that first downbeat is truly so emotional. And then especially to your point, being with a group of such high level students is really adds that little bit extra to it, I think.
Absolutely.
Well, and I know we're recording this here before you go to Midwest. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of those goosebump moments at Midwest as looking at some of the groups that are performing there. Always incredible, but I think there's that added effect this year.
Exactly. And the groups that are performing this year are groups that were invited to perform last year, but didn't have, the opportunity to do that because we were virtual. So, starting out with the Army Band, and then the Count Basie Orchestra is going to be there, not to mention the outstanding groups that are going to be playing. So, can't wait to hear them.
Yeah. Lucky you, as always, to be able to head to Chicago and see that. So let's return back to Pennsylvania. We can talk about Midwest for a while, I'm sure, but let's return back to Pennsylvania. So for students watching who are going to be on that stage with you and in those rehearsals with you, what's the one thing you want those students to know about you before they arrive in the Poconos for that first downbeat?
Well, I want them to know that I'm passionate about music making. I love what I do, and having the privilege of sharing that with young musicians is the honor of a lifetime. And I don't take that for granted. And I also know that and I put this in a letter that I wrote to the students, although, I haven't met any of those students yet, I know a whole lot about them. I know that they're terribly dedicated. I know that they are determined young ladies and gentlemen. I know that they have gone above and beyond to earn the honor of playing in the All-State Band. So, I want to make that a musically memorable, a challenging performance, but I also want them to remember what it felt like to play in that band, because think about it, that's the only time that this particular group of wonderful young people will ever get together to make music. And, my philosophy is it's not how the music sounds, it's how those sounds make us feel that we carry with us forever. So, I want them to know that I love music. I'm passionate about music. And I also want it to be fun. My definition of fun is the joy of high achievement. And I know that we'll do that.
Well, I said it once today, I'll say it again. I want to be in this ensemble. So if you see me sneak in while we're in the Poconos, just don't say anything and let me play along.
We can always use an extra hand in the percussion section.
Paula, thank you so much for taking a little time to talk to us. And we really look forward to seeing you here in Kalahari in the Poconos in just a few months.
As do I. We're going to make some great music.
Great. Thank you so much. With us now is Jason Seber. He is the Associate Conductor of the Kansas City Symphony Orchestra. And we are excited to say that he is the 2022 PMEA All-State Orchestra Conductor. Jason, thanks for being with us.
Mark, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be talking with you today, and I'm really excited to be conducting the All-State Orchestra here in a few months.
Yeah, and a product of Pennsylvania and the PMEA system, which we will talk about here in just a couple of minutes. But first, what we like to do with conductors is talk about, as I say, kind of the big story, and that is the musical selections. So can you talk to us a little bit about the musical selections for the All-State Orchestra?
Sure, absolutely. I picked 3 pieces for us to play this year, and they're very eclectic, very different from each other, and all really fun, exciting pieces to perform, not only for the orchestra, but I think they're great audience-pleasing pieces as well. So I think the audience is really going to love our performance. We start with Christopher Theophanidis' Rainbow Body. Chris is a friend of mine. He's a great composer, one of the great American composers living today. It is a piece that is based on a chant, actually, by Hildegard of Bingen, an 11th and 12th century composer and philosopher, one of the most amazing composers from the high Middle Ages. I mean, she was just incredible. And Theophanidis was inspired by one of her chants in particular, an Ave Maria chant that is beautiful. And the way that Theophanidis treats this melody throughout the piece is really incredible. He has the strings kind of playing skeletons of the notes and sliding between pitches. And it really sounds like you're listening to this in an old cathedral from that time period, the way he creates all these aural effects with the strings especially. But the idea of Rainbow Body, it's actually an old Buddhist philosophy that once a higher being passes from the earth, they return into the universe as light or energy. And we really get that feeling of energy throughout the entire piece. There's all these tumultuous moments with the brass and the percussion and the woodwinds especially. And then he keeps coming back to this really centered, beautiful, spiritual Ave Maria that Hildegard wrote. It's an incredible work. It's a lot of fun to play. And at the end, we all get to shout as well over top of playing. Oh, well, the strings and the percussion, at least. The winds and brass will be a little bit preoccupied, but that's always fun as well. I've done this piece with students a few times and they always love it. So I'm excited to open the program with that. And then we go to a piece by Mason Bates, another great American composer. Mason was Chicago Symphony's composer in residence. He's worked with the Kennedy Center. He used to be a DJ, a really well-known DJ on the West Coast, in the LA scene especially. So he has this classical background and he also has this background as a DJ. So he kind of combines those two elements in his music. So we have a pre-recorded drum track that has all sorts of percussive sounds and space sounds and all sorts of interesting electronic sounds. And we actually, as the orchestra, play to that track. And there's someone that sits in the back of the orchestra, usually a percussion player, on a laptop, queuing up each of those sounds. And this fusion, I'm a big foodie, so I always look for food items that are fusion, like you mix Mexican food with Chinese food, or pizza with, Vietnamese food. I am always looking for ways of fusing food. And I think this is a perfect musical fusion of two different styles of music, and it's a lot of fun to play as well. And then we end the program with the last movement from Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony, one of the absolute most incredible pieces from the 20th century. And Shostakovich, of course, wrote 15 symphonies, but this Fifth Symphony is probably his most well-known piece, not just his most well-known symphony. It was a response to Stalin and the Soviet regime at the time, who were very upset at Shostakovich for his Fourth Symphony and his opera Lady Macbeth. And so this was his apology to Stalin. Stalin wanted Russian music to be a certain way, and he thought that Shostakovich was too adventurous, too influenced by Western culture. And this was his apology, quote unquote, to Stalin. But it turns out that, especially in this last movement, it's very sarcastic. And the people of Russia, at the very first performance of this piece, understood that and actually gave it a 30-minute standing ovation. And it's mostly because of this last movement, which is very militaristic. It's over the top. It's kind of giving Stalin what he wanted times 10. And all the people of Russia understood the sarcasm, and Stalin still loved it because it was big and bombastic. But it's one of the most incredible examples, I think, of how music can be used to speak for a whole group of people and give them hope and give them reason for being. And I think that it's always electric when you perform this last movement, especially of this symphony. Once again, it's another piece I've done with students several times, and it's always their favorite piece they played that year, or their whole 4 years of high school, or whatever. It's just an incredible work. So it's a great way to close the program.
I love the mix. This, I mean, talk about a variety pack. This is fun, and I think it'd be a wonderful experience for the students. And speaking of the students, I mean, what is your programming as you're thinking about being there for the rehearsals and the performance? What are you hoping that students will get out of this experience being in the All-State Orchestra in Pennsylvania?
Well, having gone through several of these experiences myself, district, regional, and all-state orchestra and chorus, actually, I participated in these festivals as a chorus member as well. They were some of the most transformative musical experiences and life experiences for me as a high school student. I think about some of the amazing conductors that I got to work with, some of the amazing students that I got to work with from other schools, and a lot of these students, of course, participate in youth orchestra. They participate in their school orchestra and band, and they get great experiences there. But this is a chance for all the best students from the entire state, and Pennsylvania is rich with lots of musical talent, to be able to come together and work on amazing music and put it together in such a short amount of time. And I hope to be as inspiring and helpful to these students along their musical journey as my All-State conductors were for me. I mean, when I think back about my high school memories in music, the ones that stand out the most are my All-State experiences. And so I hope to be able to facilitate those experiences for the students coming this year. And I hope that they leave after their 3 or 4 days at All-State energized, excited about music, and ready to go back to their schools and be great leaders, and have even more excitement for what they're doing in their school music programs and their youth orchestra programs as well.
So I guess it's kind of fair then to say for the students, remember that this guy up on the podium was in your seat. So he knows what you're going through. I mean, it's fair that, that's kind of in your head as well.
Absolutely. I mean, and specifically in Pennsylvania, I remember district orchestra, I remember regional chorus, I remember All-State, I did All-State orchestra and chorus, actually both. And I know that it's long days. You rehearse many hours, you're worn out by the end of the day each day. But what you get from the experience makes all the hard work, all the practicing ahead of time, all the preparation with your school directors, all the giving up those few days of school and having to make up all the schoolwork, all of it is worth it when you're there performing on the last day. And that's the transformative musical experience that I hope that we all have and realize that we're working towards and can enjoy and remember many, many years later. So yeah, I loved these experiences when I was a student, and I just hope that everyone coming this year can have an equal or better experience.
For me, and I imagine it was the same for you, as I look back on my experiences, in those situations, I don't remember the long rehearsal day. Yeah, I mean, if I really think about it, I guess I do. But the first things that come to mind are the colleague students I met, from other schools, because that was an exciting thing. And then that moment before the first downbeat of the concert, when you're sitting on the stage and the lights are up and the audiences, the lights are down in the audience. So to the students out there, to your point, those are those experiences that you're going to remember 10, 15, 20, 30, the rest of your lifetime.
Right.
For sure.
Right. Exactly. I also think that these All-State experiences and the conference, the music education conference that's happening simultaneously, they are a celebration of music education, and especially about music education in Pennsylvania, which I already said is so strong. We are so blessed to have so many strong band, orchestra, and choral programs throughout the state. And to me, this is a celebration of our band and orchestra teachers and chorus teachers. It's a celebration of the private teachers that work hard with all these students, the parents, and all the other support system in all these students' lives that help them get to this point where they now can perform at this high of a level with this many other students throughout the state. So part of the excitement of the whole week for me is getting to meet a lot of their orchestra and band teachers, their private teachers, have conversations with each of them, and really lift them up and thank them for all the hard work that they do day in and day out to get the students to this point where they can now have this exciting and successful experience.
So part of this year that makes it even more special than any other All-State experience is the lack of that in-person All-State experience for the past 2 years. I'm curious then for your thoughts on returning to the stage with an honors ensemble and what that is just, feeling for you, and maybe even, in your role in Kansas City, returning in some way with, in-person music making after we didn't have it for so long. What is that feeling for you?
There's really no way to describe it in words. I mean, what we do performing is exciting because of playing great music and feeling the community on stage, but we do it for a live audience. So I will say that, here at the Kansas City Symphony, we kept playing throughout the pandemic. We bought a mobile music box and took it all around town and performed in chamber groups for communities all around Kansas City. And that was fun and a great way to keep performing for our community. We recorded a lot of stuff and streamed it, but it was so weird. As great as it was to be playing again, it was so weird to play to an empty hall and just play to cameras. You miss the applause, of course, but you also miss the energy that you feel from an audience. A performance is not just about what's happening on stage, it's about what's happening out in the hall as well, and that interaction and that feeling of community between you and the audience. So when we did our first concerts again near the very end of the 2020-21 season, in May and June of 21, it was, even though it was just an audience of 20% capacity, even that felt great. But returning this fall to full audiences that were fully vaccinated and coming in and excited to hear live music again, there's just no way to describe how that felt again and how great that felt. So like you said, we haven't been able to have this festival live for the past 2 years. So I think it's going to be extra special for everyone, not just the performers, but for the teachers and the parents and everyone listening out in the audience. I think there's going to be an extra level of energy and excitement in the air. And I can't wait for us all to experience that.
Yeah, I think we're all just excited, as I keep saying, for that first downbeat of every ensemble. It's going to be a special moment. Okay, so for students listening to this who are going to be part of the All-State Orchestra, what is the one thing that they should know about you before they are there for that first rehearsal?
Ooh, I am someone that tries to be the same conductor, whether I'm working with students or professionals. I'm not only in my conducting technique and what I'm doing with my hands and face and everything else, but in my expectations. And one thing I love about working with professional orchestras is that they always come to the first and sometimes the only rehearsal that we have for a lot of the stuff that I do, fully prepared. They know every note, every rhythm. They can play their part perfectly when they come to that first rehearsal. And so my expectation for all these students that are coming to participate in All-State Orchestra is that once they find out that they've made the All-State Orchestra, that they'll get their music as soon as possible, spread out their time over the month or two that they have to prepare, and really try to come to that very first downbeat of the very first rehearsal ready to perform their part. Because we have such a limited amount of time when we're there. And if everyone comes fully prepared, then we're not working on fixing a rhythm or trying to get something in tune or whatever. We're only working on the music. And that's what's going to make it such an incredible performance and experience for all of us, is if we're able to make music right away from that very first hour of that first rehearsal. So my hope is that everyone treats this as an opportunity to see a little bit of what it's like to be a professional. Because as professional musicians, you have such limited time to put something together, even less than we're going to have for All-State. The most rehearsals a professional orchestra gets for a concert is 4. And those are, 2.5 hour rehearsals. So you're talking 9, maybe 10 hours of rehearsal total to prepare for one concert. Most of the concerts I conduct, pops concerts, education concerts, family concerts, holiday, etc., I get 1, maybe 2 rehearsals. So this is kind of like if you scale down what a typical student band or orchestra in high school gets, a month couple months, 3 months to prepare a concert. Now we're getting 2 or 3 days. And to me, that's the best scaling example of what a professional orchestra does. They have to put together music in a very short amount of time. And the only way to be successful doing that is if everyone comes fully prepared, ready to go, ready to learn, ready to contribute and be their best for the group. So that's what I would say, is that I hope that they all treat this as like a pre-professional experience, because if they put the work in ahead of time, they're going to get so much more out of it when they leave a few days later.
I love the perspective. I think that's such a cool lesson for students to think about, the taking that professional way of thinking about what they're doing here. So we are absolutely looking forward to this. This is going to be fantastic. Jason, thank you for joining us to talk today. And thank you for being our 2022 All-State Orchestra Conductor. We can't wait to see you in the Poconos.
Thank you, Mark. I can't wait to be there. And it's so nice to talk to you today. I really look forward to working with all the amazing young musicians that are going to come perform and rehearse with us those few days. I just can't wait. And I've never been to the Poconos. I'm from Erie, so I've never been to the Poconos. I'm super excited to be there in that beautiful part of Pennsylvania. I just can't wait.
And, it's not only is it a beautiful part of Pennsylvania, the Kalahari Resort is incredible. It's going to be a wonderful experience, and we are so glad you're going to be there with us. Again, thanks for talking with us today.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks to the conductors for joining us and giving us a little bit of insight about what we can look forward to this April. You can find more information on the PMEA conference and the All-State Festival at pmea.net. And if you've missed any previous Take Note podcasts, you can find that at pmea.net/take note or in your favorite podcast app. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at the conference in the Poconos in April and also on the next Take Note podcast.